Hello, my beautiful cuddlebugs. Welcome to Ramblings of a Book Dragon, where we dive into the warmth of good books and unravel stories that feel like a literary hug. I'm Allie, your host, and I'm thrilled to embark on another cozy adventure with you. So grab a cup of your favorite beverage, snuggle into your cozy reading nook, and let's begin. But before we do, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe so that you won't miss a single episode. I really value your feedback and book recommendations. Now let's begin. Today I'm reviewing How to Summon a Fairy Godmother, written by Laura J. Mayo and narrated by Josie Charles. It's a laugh-out-loud fairy tale what-if look at Cinderella's evil stepsisters, specifically one Lady Theodosia, and it's a what-if of what if things weren't exactly what we thought they were? Because Theo, all of her life, she has basically been the cast-aside sister from before with her mother and her sister. Her sister was always her mother's favorite. And then later on, when her mother met Cinderella, or Beatrice's father, Beatrice was her father's favorite after Beatrice's mother died. And then there is just, Theo has grown up as basically the outcast of the family. And then when Beatrice was able to summon a fairy godmother and she won the heart of the prince and she became a princess of her own, she cast the story of the wicked evil stepsisters and her just wicked family. And ever since then, that's become an even worse situation for Theo, where everywhere that she went with her parties, it was no one wanted to be friends with her. No one wanted to like her. She was seen as the villain. And because of that, she was like, well, if you want me to be the villain, I'll be the villain. And she's always had a cutting remark at people. And she's always been like, Beatrice is very conniving. She's very self-centered. She's very manipulative. Why can't anyone else see this but me? And it's just not a very good situation. But she felt that she was finally free of Beatrice, and with her getting out of the house. So everything was originally going to be looking fine, especially since her mother told her that she's going to be married off to a duke, which is fantastic. Yay! We love this because she's going from being a lady to a duchess. And at the beginning of the book, she is a very not nice person. She's very nasty to the help. The help is this old woman because they're really just not doing very good financially. And so the help is wanting help from her. But then again, also at the same, it's just not a good situation at all in the house. So she thinks, well, okay, I need to impress this duke. I can't just look like my regular schmegular self. And she knows that Beatrice's mother had beautiful dresses, so she goes to where Beatrice used to live, her room, and she wants to look for the dresses. And in the process of finding some outfits, she stumbles across not only a painting of Beatrice's mother, she also sees this document of how to summon a fairy godmother. And it includes very detailed instructions of how to do this. Not only what you need, when you need it, what not to include, which includes certain types of flowers. Do not mix up certain types of flowers because that is very, very bad. And no iron at all. Iron is very, 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 very bad. And it's just not a good situation for the fairies because it will repel them. And it's just not good. So she's kind of like, okay, this is interesting, but whatever. I'm going to be married to a duke, whatever. And so she finds the outfits and they go to the duke's castle. And at first she's kind of like, why is everyone looking at me this way? And it's just starting off as a weird situation because she's told that the Duke won't like the outfit that she was originally going to wear to meet him. And they want her to wear this musty, dusty dress that looks like it was from the last century. And they want her hair to look like it was from the last century. All this is very not good. And then we find out, the Duke is extremely ancient. old enough to be her grandfather plus a couple decades. And everyone in the castle, the staff, his grandson's fiance, they're all just not. They're all kind of making fun of her. Instead of feeling bad that this 18-year-old girl is being married off and is expected to give him more children, instead of feeling sorry for her that she has to be with an old man, they're like, oh, she's a horrible girl, that she's getting what she deserved. Like this, and that's kind of the crazy thing in this book. Like that's what we see over and over and over again with these people, is not like they go to instant, we don't like you, and because, oh, we heard these rumors, so we're not going to like you, or because we heard these rumors from even your own servants don't like you, because the princess doesn't like you, has said that you're horrible and evil, this is just not, we just hate you. And she's realizing, I need to get out of this situation. I cannot marry an old man. No. So, and plus, like, she knows that she's going to be miserable. This is going to be hell on earth. This is just not a good situation for her at all. So she finds the documents, she gets what she needs, and she summons her fairy godmother, and her name is Cecily, or Cecily of the Ash Fairies. She's gorgeous, cunning, and devious, and certainly not what you imagine a fairy godmother would look like. And in fact, the author had put in this little quip about how she expected her to look old and matronly. It was very much a kind of a poke at the original Cinderella cartoon, which I thought was really cute. And like there was this whole story that was peddled that the fairy godmother felt so sorry for Cinderella, and so she must have done all this from the goodness of her heart. And throughout the entire book, we're slowly learning just what Theo's life was like, not only with how her mother and sister treated her, but also with how she was saying throughout the book that Bee kind of just let Theo take the blame for things, and we're seeing all this from Theo's perspective as well, Theodosia. And so there was a situation when her mother and Bee's father first got married, where they were little girls, and there was a real opportunity for them to be good friends, and they were going to go and climb up this tree. And this was after Bee lost her mother and everything. And Bee, at first they had decided to climb up this tree, and the one who climbed up the highest was going to wrap this cloth around the highest branch, and then the other was going to climb up. Climb up next. Theo did it just fine. She was fantastic at it. She's a great little climber. And then Bee tried, and she fell and broke her arm. And now Theo, she is completely upset. She's crying. She is just extremely scared. She runs back into the house to tell her mother and her stepfather blames her. It's like, excuse you, she's a little girl. Like, what the heck? And she's the one that gets punished, because how could she have let Bee be the one? How could she have let Bee, precious little Bee, be the one to climb up a tree? And like, that's just something that's happened incessantly throughout this book. And at first, it was kind of a thought of how much of this was in Theo's head, how much of it is her projecting and kind of blaming. But we do see genuine acts, at least from Theo's perspective, of how Bee would kind of just stood back. Like, it didn't sound like she had really outright antagonized for the purpose of hurting Theo. It wasn't anything like that, but it sounded like Beatrice was like, they were both, we learn throughout the book that they were both stuck in their own bubbles of abuse, and Beatrice was just so stuck in her own bubble of abuse and pain. She couldn't see that Theo was hurting as much as Bee was. And she just, and like that's kind of that whole story that we got with Cinderella. Is Cinderella was abused, neglected. It was just a terrible situation with her stepmother and her stepsisters. They were horrible, evil, wicked women. And Cinderella was just the absolute innocent. And that's what we kind of get with this idea in this book as well. But it's looking at it as more of a twisted perspective, is like in Wicked. Are we born wicked, or is wickedness thrust upon us? Except Theo really isn't wicked. Like, yeah, she's sarcastic and she's able to throw insults at anyone who with ease, and her insults are really snappy and she's fantastic at it. But it's not like she's trying to be, she's not going to start it, but she's going to finish it. And mad props to that. And that's something that we see throughout this book, is she might not start a fight, but she will finish it. And so she's able to talk to Cecily, and Cecily had said like, oh, I heard all about you. And so Theo tells her all about what's going on and how she's wanting to get out of this marriage. She wants Cecily's help with this. So she says, well, I can help you, but I need you to prove to me that you're a good person. So you need to complete 3 tasks for me. And it's kind of like, what? You didn't have to. Bee never mentioned anything about completing tasks, but Theo is desperate, so she agrees to do these 3 tasks to prove that she's a good person. She has to prove that she is doing this out of the goodness of her heart and that she is a good person. Once she does this and proves it, then Cecily will get her out of the marriage. And she's not even worrying that much about marrying someone else. She just wants out. She wants her own freedom, especially since her sister is being married to a man that she loves. And she just knows, like, this is just not a good situation. So that's basically throughout the rest of the book, is we're getting into the tasks. The first task is, and plus to help with the tasks are these 2 men. One is a man who turns into a fox familiar, and they're both Cecily's familiars. And familiars, as we learn, they are humans who have struck a bargain with the fairy, and they have a special bond where they will live as long as they are working for the fairy. They won't be hurt. And this is the same thing that's happening with Theo. I mean, she's not a familiar right now, but she is. But we have her 2 familiars who work for her, and they just will continue to live and work and just do her bidding. So if she needs a bargain to be completed, if they need to do any tasks for her, they will do it. And now Theo is going to be one of the ones that does these tasks as well. So we have Kaz, who is very handsome and doesn't like her at first sight, which we know how that's gonna go. And then we also have another human who turns into a mockingbird named Phineas, and they are to help her with any tasks that come up. The first task is for Theo to free a gnome who is about to be imprisoned for 300 years by any means necessary. And part of this was also that she doesn't really know why he was in prison, but she knows that he did this. But that's not the point. Like, we need to get him out. And so she has to prove her cunning by getting in. Like, they're able to help her get into the elven court. And so she's asking questions like, why is he in an elven court if this is a fairy gnome feud? And so she's like, oh, you're asking all the right questions. Very, very good. And everything. And it's because this is a fairy gnome feud. So he has to be in prison somewhere else while the decisions are being made. So she is going to be the gnome's representative, and Kaz and Phineas are going to be the ones to help her get that all situated. And so she goes in and she's able to talk the guard into letting her go down to see him. And so she's able to use some of her mother's stuff, and she's able, like, that's part of what her shtick is she's able to use her words to get things done, and she's able to do it very, very well. Like, she's able to put on the charm, and like she knows that she has to use honey to get some things done. And so she's like, I can prove this, I can do this. And so we get a lot of sass and banter between her and Kaz, and it's all very cute. And we also get a look into the elven court system, and we meet a fairy who was that's why the gnome is going to be imprisoned, is because the gnome had a tree that was growing right by the fairies, what's it called? Grapes, vineyards. Helps if I know the right words. By the vineyard, and he was trying to get him to grow the tree somewhere else. And because of that, and he cut down the tree because the tree was dying. Like, there was information that was given to Theo by the gnome, but it wasn't all the information. So it was just not a good situation for Theo as her first round into her attempt at being a lawyer. As far as the laugh out loud funny aspect, there were bits and bobs that were funny. I do think there are books out there that are more laugh out loud funny. Like, if it's going to proclaim itself as laugh out loud funny, I would expect there to be more laugh out loud, and maybe some of the jokes just went over my head. Maybe some of the barbs were supposed to be funny. I don't know. There were some things that were funny, but I don't think it was I was expecting more laugh out loud. It was funny, but I was expecting a bit more. I don't know. So, but we learn that there's a fairy, and she's able to strike a bargain with the fairy that she will play, because she knows how to play the harp. That is her favorite instrument. That is her thing that she loves to do. She loves to play the harp. That is her instrument of choice. So he says, why don't you play the harp at my ball tonight? And if you do that, and also the gnome had put a blight on the vineyard, and if the gnome agrees to remove the blight, then we will consider this all good, all simpatico. He can be free to go wherever he wants. They make the deal, and then she's able to go to the ball and play. And this is her first night. Like, she doesn't have friends because of the way her family treated Beatrice, and because of the stories. Like, she does not have friends. And that's something that Kaz brought up, because Kaz was a bit of a not nice guy at first, but that's because he didn't know her yet, because he had his ideas based on what Beatrice had said, which is the whole issue with what was going on throughout this whole book. Is not the issue with the writing, but with just the fact, like, I found it a little weird that everybody just agreed. Yeah, like, it took a while for her to break down the walls long enough. But the fact that she didn't have any friends at all, like, everyone just took Beatrice's side. Like, I know courts can be, like, weird. I don't know. It felt like an extreme situation on both ends. It felt extreme, but it's also a fairy tale, and it's Cinderella, so it's going to be a little extreme. And so our dear friend Fairy, who invited her, like, she is having fun because no one had any preconceived ideas. And that's part of what I get with the book too, is that's why it was set up like this, so that she could see, like, hey, this is what it's like when people don't have preconceived ideas. I can have fun. I can let the walls down a little. So I can have fun and be. She realized that this was the first time in a very, very long time, and possibly forever, that she was herself. It was just so sweet because she just had so much fun. She was able to play with this group of fairies, and they really enjoyed her company. And she was invited to sit with the fairies and drink and dance and just have fun. And it was just so wonderful. So then she goes back to her normal life and everything. And then we learn, and Kaz is jealous of her spending time with the fairy guy. And we don't learn until pretty much the end of the book what the issue is. And I found that to be a little annoying. Like, I wish we had a few more hints. Like, and maybe the hints were there and maybe I would pick them up again on a re-listen, because I listened, obviously, but I didn't really feel like we had, like, he was trying to warn her to stay away from him, but I felt like we didn't really get the hints that we probably could have, or maybe should have gotten. Maybe we could have gotten a bit more, or maybe that's just me being, my usual picky self. I don't know. But the next task is for Theo to steal a necklace from a fairy woman who had supposedly stolen it from someone else. This necklace, we find out, can repel iron and anything else that can harm Fae. The fairy woman is a relation to the lover of a very powerful man, and basically everyone fawns over her because of this and because of her beauty, and she is just practically perfect in every way. Naturally, Theo hates her guts, and she's going to go to this party to celebrate the anniversary of her brother's relationship. And so Theo is responsible for getting the necklace and returning it to Cecily. And she's not, but this time she doesn't know Cecily. She doesn't know the others. She is doing this on her own. And so we get to go into a fairy party, and we learn a bit more about the fairy politics of how they treat humans who are not claimed. So first we were in the elven courts and how they viewed humans, and now we're in the fairy courts and how they view humans, and it's a bit more bloodthirsty sportsman-like than we would like, because she's trying to kind of wiggle her way through, and like we see her mental processes of figuring out, like, okay, I need to get to this woman. I need to figure out what I need to do, and I need to try to figure out a plan. The plan backfired because she was saying that she's an unclaimed human, and so someone was like, who let you out? And then we find out that it's because humans were the entertainment. Luckily, the humans weren't killed, and they were because we saw fairies throwing things at humans, and it was just a very bloody situation, and it was just not good. Like, it was just very debasing, dehumanizing, obviously, because they're humans, but it was just not a good situation. And it made her realize, like, kind of, like, she is very lucky in the bargain that she made with Cecily. Truly, really, truly. So she has, and this is a 2-day affair, so she fails the first time because she wanted to play darts, and she's very good at darts, but because they're the Fae, they were able to twist it, and they decide to do this other version, and she tried to wind them up and piss them off. And she does that, but it doesn't work, so she loses the darts. And because she was wanting to do the darts to get the necklace, but she loses. So then the next night she's talking to Cecily because she learns that she has this very rare, very popular, very wanted type of wine. So she asks Cecily about the wine, and Cecily's like, okay, this is perfect. I will get you as much as you want. Fantastic. And you're also going to get a disguise so that she can get closer to the woman, and because she knows that she can't get close to her because she knows who she is. So she's able to get close to her. They're able to get drunk. Like, she can't hide that she's a human, but she can at least pretend to be someone else. And we get a first kind of hint that her ideas of what's going on, like, we got the hint with the gnome too, but we get even more of an idea because this woman is basically like her stepsister, but we get this hint that, okay, she has these ideas of what it's like, but they're not always the right ideas, because she had made some pointed remarks at the Fae woman, and the Fae woman was like, well, yeah, she was kind of right. Like, what if people only like me because of my brother? What if they're laughing because of my brother, not because they actually find me funny? And so she's able to get the necklace, and we're not really sure of why Cecily is needing these things. Like, they don't really match up at first. Like, we learn at the end of the book, obviously. It all comes together perfectly at the end. But it's kind of like, ooh, what's going on? Why are we needing these things? Like, ooh. And we also learn that Beatrice, in her magnanimousness, that word, she is funding iron. And iron repels fairies. So that's a hint that what is going on. Like, why is she funding all this iron? Like, that's fantastic to put money back into the people. But what, like, she's putting all this iron into the castle. She's wanting to do more with iron. So it's like, okay, what is going on here? Why is she needing all this iron? So that's kind of a hint that there's something's amok. We don't know what, but we're kind of getting some hints. We're getting some clues, which is always appreciated. And so we finally get into the third task, which is for Theo to deliver a gift to Beatrice. And it has to be in person. It has to be handed to her. It can't be chucked at her head, and it has to be a meaningful gift. And so she sees that she knows the perfect gift, which is the painting of her mother that she found. So she delivers the painting to Beatrice. She's able to sneak into the castle in order to do all of this. And I'm not going to spoil the ending of the book. Well, I'm going to spoil the ending, but I'm not going to spoil the big reveal. Like, we get the big reveal of what really happened with Beatrice, what the plan was, why it is that Cecily was wanting all these things. Like, we get that big juicy reveal, and it is revealed about what was going on with Beatrice and everything. And in a moment of true good personness, Theo takes Beatrice's place. That's all I'm gonna say in that regard, because Kaz, near the end of the book, made his proclamations of, come with me, we can escape. Like, I see you for who you are. Don't fall for this fairy guy. Like, I truly see you. Like, I appreciate not only, yes, you are beautiful. And that's something that she had never really heard before, like only as in cruelty, really. But she's been learning to accept, like, yeah, people do see her for who she is. And Kaz is seeing, like, yes, you do make cutting remarks. Yes, you are insulting, but they are brilliant insults. And it's just like, I don't like that the author did. I see what the author did. And I'm glad that it wasn't, she could have made it a lot more heartbreaking, because Kaz wanted his freedom from being her familiar, from Cecily's familiar. And in order for him to be freed, they have to find a replacement. And at first it was supposed to be Beatrice. That's all I'm going to say on that. That's my only hint. But Theo decides to replace her, and out of the goodness of her heart, because she knows, like, Beatrice is doing a lot of good for the people. And she recognizes at the end of the book, there's been a lot of cycles of cycles of violence that have been going on in this throughout her entire life, even perhaps in her mother's life. And her husband, the Duke, had these little kids, and she found out, like, the little girl was sweet to her and was going to be welcoming to her, but she's like, I hate kids, go away. And after that, the little girl was starting to develop those same situations, those same things that Theo was doing before. And she realized, I need to stop this. I need to end the violence here. I need to stop this cycle, because that is exactly also what Beatrice was trying to escape. She was trying to escape the cycle of violence, like I was saying before with the bubbles. They were both stuck in their bubbles of violence, and they were both trying to escape the violence. And they're just both realizing, like, and Theo was the one that really came to this. And it sounds like it took a little bit longer after this for Beatrice to really realize just what Theo did, because she was still stuck in her woe is me mentality. And it was kind of just like, Oh my God, you insufferable woman. Like she's crying and she's all woe is me. I can't do this, blah blah blah. Oh, woe is me. And Theo is just like, okay, I will do this instead. I will take this on. I will become the familiar instead. And Kaz, he's upset because he realized that he wants to leave with her. And it's just like, oh, sweet baby. And so they could have been together, but she's like, no, I need to do this for her, for Beatrice. Like, well, we're never going to be friends. Like, she knows that they're never going to be good people. Like, they're never going to get to that point, but she can at least do what she can. And so she agrees. And I mean, it sounds like Cecily will be a good fairy person for her. And so Kaz is released, and she goes to she goes to Cecily's house, and that's that. I mean, and then we learn more about what was going on with the fairy guy, and we learn more about that. But the end of the book is ultimately happy because she's gonna live a very, 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 very long time until she asks to be released, at which point they'll have to find a replacement for her if she ever wants to get to that point. But she's going to live for a very long time. And I'm curious if she's going to have her own familiar shape, like if she's going to turn into something, because like Kaz turned into a fox. So is she going to have her own thing? Plus she's going to have all the beautiful dresses and everything. And she's going to have some of the magic so she can heal and basically live forever, or until she decides to ask to be released and need to find a replacement. That's what it sounds like anyway. But yeah, so that'll be good. But she realized like she's made friends. And so who knows what may happen in her future. And it sounds like there is going to be a second book, and I am excited about reading that. And so it'll be good. I don't know when it's going to come out, but I will be keeping an eye out for it, and I will read it. I did like the narrator. She did do a good job. There were some things that I feel like could have been a little better in terms of the way that she differentiated between the different characters, especially with the male voices. It was a little hard to tell that sometimes. But other than that, I felt like she did a really good job. So take care, my beautiful cuddlebugs, and please review and give me any recommendations. I greatly appreciate it. I will catch you next time. Goodbye.